G'day, Tragic here, and welcome to my final thoughts. This is sort of a new feature I'm going to add to the end of my videos where I do like a kind of summing up of the game, just it's sort of like a review, I guess, but it's more just so I can pontificate about gaming and, board games and stuff like that. I'm going to try and keep it short, and this is a feature, I guess you'd call it, ripped off completely from a guy called Callendale, who has a really great YouTube channel where he does solo playthroughs of quite in-depth war games, so definitely go check him out. Anyway, the first thing I should really talk about is the expansion itself. The Horned Rat expansion. Is this something you should get? Is this a good expansion? And yeah, it's all right. I think it's fine. I mean, if you really need a fifth player for this game, then get the expansion. I mean, it's the only choice, obviously, but it does add some cool things. It does add the Horned Rat, and it's got some neat little mechanics. Some of the cards are really interesting. Some of the new cards. In fact, I like almost all the new cards. But the thing about this game is that it is the original, the core set. It's so well designed. I mean, it feels balanced, even though it's not balanced. And I'll talk about balance in a bit. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it is good. It's pretty good, but it's unnecessary. The first game is a completely working, functioning entity. I mean, it is a good game. Nothing to complain about, in my opinion. And this new expansion is basically throwing a spanner into the works, and I don't believe it's as well thought out, and it sort of puts off kilter some of the really smooth edges that are in the original game. That being said, if you really like the game and you want an extra person at the table, or you just want to get something for a bit of variety, then it's great. And for variety, it's really good. In fact, I will probably be playing with the Horned Rat cards for the other gods, but only playing 4-player without the Horned Rat. That's how I will be playing Chaos of the Old World for the foreseeable future. With one exception, I'm going to remove the new Bloodletter card. I was actually talking to a guy on the YouTube comments about this card. There's a card that gives you 2 VPs every time you kill with the Bloodletter. It's extremely powerful. I mean, you can pull massive VP swings in combat. Ridiculously strong. I understand why it was placed in there, but still, it's incredibly powerful. It's just because with the Horned Rat, see, that's the thing about balance, and let's talk about balance for a sec. With balance, a lot of people believe balance to be a really important part of gaming, and I believe it's not. In fact, I think designers who strive for balance make a critical error. Games do not need to be balanced. Balance is an unnatural state, and it just doesn't work. The only way you can create balance is by having mirrored players, as in every player is the same. And there's lots of great games like that, don't get me wrong. But games that have variable player powers that force balance, usually through quite complicated rule systems, because they need these to even up the score, it just overcomplicates and overdesigns the game. I mean, games like Cosmic Encounter, that has no balance, and that game's fantastic. Even high efficiency games like Terra Mystica, very high efficiency game, really out of balance player powers. Still, why do games like Chaos of the Old World, which has out of balance player powers, feel so balanced, in inverted commas? Well, the answer is that the really good player power games use what I call player equilibrium. I don't know. It's my term. Stamp that. Anyway, it uses a player equilibrium, which means that the players themselves create the balance. So the mechanics of the game, so the mechanisms of the game are out of balance, but the players themselves create an equilibrium by retarding the other player through their actions. Like the Nurgle player will be able to stop, the Khorne player is able to stop the Nurgle player getting his corruption tokens down, stuff like that, because he's killing Nurgle. Things like that. So the actual players create balance through their actions. And this is the way you can get really intense and really interesting games, which I think that balanced games don't have. And I really think balance is a very misunderstood concept in gaming by gamers and designers alike. But anyway, the equilibrium, so to speak, in the original game is fantastically provided. I mean, once you start playing that game, you find out that all the gods are pretty much equal, even though they've got hugely out of whack powers. But when you threw in the Rat God expansion, it's sort of like throwing this wrench in, and I don't think it's as well thought out. And the different powers are a little off kilter. For example, and this is a big example, there is a new... Because what they did, when to keep the equilibrium, because the designers knew about what I was talking about, they actually redesigned every single player, every single god's cards and upgrade cards. You know, those decks that are playing the Chaos cards and the upgrade cards, they're all new and come with the Horned Rat expansion. And that is to change all the gods slightly to allow the Horned Rat to fit in. And one of the big changes they did is they allow Khorne to get 2 VPs every time he kills a model inside a zone where he has at least 1 blood letter. And this is hugely powerful. And the reason it's been placed in is because with the plague rats and, you know, him able to place ogres and stuff, it is almost impossible for Khorne to place corruption tokens. Extremely hard anyway. I mean, he is a very, very difficult for him to get VPs through any other way. And that's why they've put this in. And it's a good idea in theory, but in reality, towards the end of the game, where everyone's crammed into single zones, 1 or 2 zones, he can pull humongous VP wins. Like huge, like 20 points, just bam, out of nowhere in the battle phase. And this is an example of what I call an equilibrium card, like a card that creates balance, right? But that balancing card is too powerful. Now, the original 4-player game does not have these kind of problems. That being said, I do like a lot of the new cards. I especially like the really hugely powerful old world cards. For experienced players, that really shakes it up, and that's great. And I think if I was going to play this game from now on, I'm going to be playing the Horned Rat expansion cards for all the player powers and stuff, but not play with the Horned Rat. I think this is a 4-player game, and I don't think I really don't think it's necessary. It's like what I would call a completely unnecessary expansion. But in truth, even I only want to play with those other cards just for some variety. But in truth, the original game, it's got everything you need. It's a completely functioning, great entity. And what makes it so great, what makes it so beautiful to play, is its simplicity. And I think simplicity is drastically interesting in games. Now, obviously, if the game's too simple, it's trivial, which we're not talking about. I'm trying to talk about, in this game, all you do is pick up a figure and place it on the table. That is it. That is the only rule you need to really keep your head on, you know, when you're doing your movements or whatever. Put a figure on the table and pay the right cost, or put a card on the table and pay the right cost. That's it. The rules are ridiculously simple. The player flow is incredibly simple. You know, this isn't one of those games where you're going to be thinking, oh wait, I should have done this like 2 turns ago because I was standing on this square, which meant I could do that, and that actually enabled this power, which I could have done this. It's also not one of those games where you're going to be going, oh wait, and then have to look at a whole bunch of tiles on the table or whole things of, you know, in your hand and say, oh, actually I've got this extra ability. It doesn't have that problem. You know, it's not like some war games where you're like going, oh wait, I'm standing in a bush behind a mountain shooting up and it's midday, so I get +4 to my attack while my gun gives me +2, but I haven't got a sniper scope, so that's -1, and he's kneeling, so he gets, you know, it's just, it's streamlined. And I think what this allows the player to do is to focus on playing the game and not on memorizing rule combinations or interactions. You can focus on strategy. You can focus on playing the game. And I think this is a huge plus for this game. It's simplicity, but yet it's not like Kemet, which is so simple it's almost trivial. The actual calculation phase that happens in Chaos of the Old World is actually quite complicated. So it's like ease of play, but complicated results. Like the implications of your simple choices are quite large because there's a huge calculation phase that sort of those choices ricochet through. And I think it's the calculation phase, adding up the corruption, adding the tokens, and the general build up of the locations is like locations become more and more valuable, and different parts of the board become more strategic than others. Like even really unstrategic locations that you think, oh, that place is, who cares about that place? By the end of the game, that could be the most valuable place on the table. Really fantastic dynamics in this game. So yeah, I would say if you're a big fan of Chaos in the Old World, then get the Horned Rat. It gives you a bit of variety and it's kind of interesting to play, but I do not recommend the Horned Rat, and I do not recommend playing less than the full amount of players. That's actually a huge problem with gaining equilibrium through players. Okay, if you design a game and you've got 5 player powers, all different, and you design it so the players themselves create the balance between each other, then you need all 5 of those powers on the table. Otherwise, if someone's not playing, it's out of whack. And it's like that in Chaos of the Old World. It has to have 4 players. When you're playing 5 with the Horned Rat, you have to play 5. I would not... It says in the manual that you can, replace one of the original gods with the Horned Rat. I would say no, don't do that at all. It's a 5-player game or a 4-player game, and that's a hard number. You can't go less. So that's a bit of a downside. The only other downside on the game for me is that I really dislike the board. And I'm not talking about the stretched skin on the spikes. That stuff's all awesome. I mean, it's a dark theme, but the board is very, very colourful, very busy. The pieces are very, very colourful. The chits are very, very small. Well, not small, but they're also colourful. It's just overload. It's very easy to look at the map and not even see what's on it, because it's just a mess of colour. And that is probably the worst thing about this game, and it's a huge disadvantage. And I think the map is one of the major regions, besides the theme, that has made this game not be an even bigger hit than it already is. I mean, this is Eric Lang's best designed game in my opinion, but it should get a lot more press than it does. But the theme and especially the board make it a bit hard for some people to play. In fact, I've been getting into the P&P scene a lot recently, like print and play scene a lot recently. I've started my Dune series, and I've got some other projects on the boil, and that's because I'm building my own. I'm planning to build my own prototype, of this game I've been designing for a few years. So anyway, you'll find out. I'll put that on the channel when I get around to it. But anyway, the point is, while I was looking into the print and play scene to teach myself how to build board game components, I found a whole sub-scene in Board Game Geek of people re-theming games. And there's some fantastic re-themes. Like there's a really awesome re-theme of Ghost Stories, where instead of ghost stories and all Chinese, it's all Lovecraft theme. And it's really awesome, because I love Lovecraft. And there's a fantastic re-theming of Pandemic, where instead of being, virus counters, it's the breaking out of chaos in the 40k universe. And you're like Blood Angels or, Ultramarines or something, I can't remember. And you're like fighting against outbreaks of chaos and the map's gone from the world to like a map of the universe with all different planets. Anyway, this game is ripe for re-theming. Like, I would love to see this game re-themed. In fact, when I was playing this, I'm kind of thinking that if all goes well with my other prototypes, I'm going to attempt this. Not a re-theme, because I do love the theme, but I'm going to rebuild the board, make a new board. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, the board is a real letdown. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to my insane ramblings. And yeah, if you sat through this, type this number 10 in the comments, because I'd be curious to know if anyone actually watched this. But yeah, so thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.